What happened? What happened? What happened in week 6 in the SEC? Hell of a lot happened. Was watching most of it all day Saturday, and I thought, after Texas A&M upsets Mizzou, I thought, that's not crazy. I don't think anybody's that was out of the realm of possibility for most people. And then we watch Vandy kind of hang around with Bama for like a quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters. What the hell is happening in the fourth quarter? And then Vanderbilt in Nashville takes down the number 1 team in the AP, Alabama, in the shocker of the day up to that point. After which, we watched the number 4 team in the country, Tennessee, go on the road to Fayetteville, coming off of a bye week, facing an Arkansas team that had just played a 5-game stretch. And the Tennessee offense looked like they hadn't even practiced for 2 weeks. And the Razorbacks upset the Vols for the night game in Fayetteville. It was an absolute bloodbath, not just throughout the SEC, but throughout all of college football. Michigan goes down. USC goes down. So what does all of this mean? Well, it is the rankings and reaction episode here on the SEC Recap. Thank you for tuning in. I am your host, Ben Warren. However you are listening, if you're joining us here on YouTube, thank you. While you're here, please smash that like button on this video and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening in audio form, head over to YouTube Music, Spotify. They have this in video form. You can check out all the graphics and stats we're going to have up on screen today. But if you're listening in audio form, however you prefer to chug your podcast, thank you for being here. So all charts, everything's been posted. I posted everything to my website, to socials last night. And instead of getting right into the rankings, I want to talk about the stats because we probably have fewer than my normal listeners tuning in for this episode, because most of the people who listen, especially here on YouTube, are fans of the teams that did not come out victorious this past weekend. And so I expect viewership to be a little bit down, or maybe I've got some of those Vanderbilt Commodores, the Texas A&M crowd, the Arkansas crowd tuning in, and you're not my normal regular weekly viewers. So I have a power rankings model that I update weekly. Neutral site rankings, how would each team stack up on a neutral field, right? And it sort of started to solidify. Well, there was a lot of shakeup this week. There was a lot of shakeup this week. But I also go through offensive and defensive efficiency metrics that I use that actually incorporate into the model, and some other factors as well, that kind of tell more of the story than perhaps just, okay, this team is ranked 16, this team is ranked 15, this team is ranked 14, okay? They help kind of illuminate why teams move up and down in the rankings model and what you can expect and glean moving forward, okay? So I'm going to save the rankings model for the end of the episode, the last half of the episode, and I want to look at some of these stats to start out with, okay? So I'm going to share this tab instead. Again, if you're not on YouTube or watching video form, please head on over to YouTube, like, subscribe to the channel. It'll make what I'm talking about so much cleaner. You can follow along with us here on screen. So these are my efficiency metrics, right? Offensive and defensive EPA per play. On the left here, we've got season average. On the right, you've got the teams who played in week 6. And I'm doing these side by side this week, so you can see for week 6 how each team performed relative to their season average. So I'm going to start with Mizzou, okay? Texas A&M, number 25 in the AP, upsets the Mizzou Tigers, at home in Kyle Field, in College Station, 41-10. It was a blowout. It was an absolute ass kicking. I picked Texas A&M to win this game in my weekly preview. I did not think it would be a blowout. So whether you won, whether you lost this week, I'm going to say some things for both teams that probably both fan bases don't really want to hear. But that's why you tune in to the SEC recap pod here. Okay. For the last 3 weeks, I have been saying that Mizzou has a big L coming. I didn't know when it would be, didn't know who it would be, but I knew it was coming because of where they were clustered in this season average. Mizzou was sitting undefeated, clustered with the 1 and 2 loss teams in the conference, right? So even though these aren't really predictive, you can take a really freaking good guess that they've got an L coming. And I guess it was this weekend, y'all. I guess it was this weekend. Their season win total was outperforming their on-the-field performance, okay? So now this cluster here makes more sense for Mizzou. So the universe has sort of righted itself in the SEC. Things have course corrected. Now it makes sense that they're in this cluster, okay? Now, there's some 1 and 2 loss teams still sitting outside this cluster, right? But these are the averages. These are the conference averages, okay? So this makes sense now to this point. Look at the week 6 offensive and defensive efficiencies. Look at where A&M is. Look at where Mizzou is. Bottom right is elite. You want to be in the bottom right here because you want defensive EPA to be negative. That means you prevented offensive EPA, and you want your offense obviously to be as far to the right as possible. So bottom right is elite, top left, is the worst. And I put this out on Twitter, guys. So if you don't follow me on Twitter, go over on Twitter. You get to see these first on Sunday. So A&M was a standout. I mean, they were absolutely elite this week. Running the football, passing the football. They ran for 236. Threw for 276. Connor Wegman was great. I haven't done my quarterback rankings. He's probably going to be one of my top receivers on the week. Okay. Brady Cook, by contrast, probably going to be one of my worst graded receivers of the week. 13 of 31, 186, and 1 touchdown. Mizzou could not run the ball. They ran for 68 yards. They threw for 186. Luther Burden, 7 for 82. Like, he's the guy, but they just could not move the ball, and A&M did whatever they wanted to. A&M defense, 6 sacks, 8 tackles for loss. Man. Yeah, I picked A&M to win. I did not think they would win like that. Let's talk the next game that I previewed, which was Ole Miss, South Carolina. Ole Miss going on the road, trying to course correct after that loss at home to Kentucky. I thought that they would. Again, I thought this game would be closer. I was picking more of like a 31-27 type game. Let's check out the performance versus the averages, right? Look at Ole Miss from week 6. They're right there offensively at the conference average, so underperforming where they've been on the season. But they are in SEC play now, so you expect that. They played cupcakes for 4 weeks. But defensively, still really, really strong. Defensively, they still performed at or very close to their season average. South Carolina, by contrast, offensively, way below. They were below 0 offensively. Efficiency on their season average, they've been trending about a 0.15 EPA per play. Defensively, they were worse. So defensively, their season average is right around like a 0.5, 0.6 EPA per play. They were at 0.2. That higher number for your defensive EPA is not good. So Ole Miss defensively performed on par with where they have been. Offensively, a little bit under relative to the season average, but by contrast, South Carolina are underperformed offensively and defensively at home. So they take their second loss on the season. That clusters them with Kentucky, 2-loss team, and Oklahoma, who is kind of their own outlier, just a 1-loss team, but though they're pretty decent defensively, they are really, really bad offensively. So we see that separate little cluster there in the bottom left quadrant. Again, if you're tuning in here on YouTube to watch this, you'll get it. These graphics make it so much nicer. If you're trying to listen to this in audio form, it's just not going to quite capture it. Okay, so head on over to YouTube or Spotify or YouTube Music where you can get this in video. Jackson Dart is going to be probably not my highest graded QB of the week, but he will be up there. He 14 of 27 for 285. It's really that 14 of 27. It's not a high completion percentage, but 285. No touchdowns through the air though. Ole Miss did it all on the ground. Parrish Jr. and Pegs. I don't know how you say his last name. Lenore Sellers, by contrast, he will grade out near the bottom, 20 of 32. No touchdowns through the air, 1 interception. He did add 55 on the ground. Carolina rushing for 151, not bad. But they couldn't complement that or supplement it the way they needed to through the air, just 162 through the air. So defensively, South Carolina was able to add a little bit of pressure, 7 tackles for loss, just 1 sack, but that Ole Miss defense, 10 tackles for loss, 6 sacks. That'll do it. All the time, guys, I talk about stats that correlate directly or have the highest direct correlation with win total. Defensive efficiency, okay? That's going to include your tackles for loss and your sacks and turnover margin, okay? Very, very high correlation with season win totals. So now, I did not preview this game because, frankly, I did not think it would be a game. I don't think anybody thought it would be a game. But we're going to talk about it now. Vanderbilt, Alabama. I thought, okay, Vanderbilt comes out first quarter, scripts some stuff. Cool. Those guys are going to be gassed by the fourth quarter. Alabama is just going to have more depth, more dudes. They're going to rotate. They're going to be fresh, and they're just going to outlast you into the fourth quarter. Shit, I was wrong. I was really, really wrong. I think just about everybody was wrong. Diego Pavia is, I mean, I don't like I'm a Tennessee fan. I grew up, I'm a Tennessee alum, right? So that's where my personal SEC loyalty lies. But damn, Diego Pavia is fun to watch, man. And like just all the misdirection, everything they were doing in that game was just cool to see. Sucks if you're an Alabama fan. All the Bama fans that were in the stands thinking they were going to come and have a blowout and then be down on Broadway by the third or fourth quarter got a surprise. By the way, imagine you are trying to get down to Broadway after the game's over and you can't because they have the street shut down because they walked the goalposts from the stadium down Broadway to throw them in the Cumberland River. Doing their best Tennessee 2022 impression after an Alabama victory. Hey, give it to them, though. They freaking earned it. Diego Pavia, 16 of 20, 2 touchdowns through the air, 252 yards. He will be, I can almost guarantee it, probably one of my highest graded quarterbacks of the week. Just kind of with a preliminary glance at the numbers. They rushed for 166. They threw for 252. Jalen Milroe, not bad. Threw for 310, 18 to 24. He'll probably be kind of middle of the road in my QB rankings. But Alabama couldn't run the ball. Guys, they couldn't run the ball. 84 on the ground, 310 through the air. I mean, let's look at it by the numbers here. So look at Vanderbilt. We'll start Vanderbilt. They've been in this cluster of the 1 and 2 loss teams, really playing hard. Offensively, kind of around that 0.275 EPA per play. Defensively, we'll say like 0.15, okay? Let me get myself off the screen here. Let's look at the week 6 performance. Offensively, maybe a little bit worse, 0.25. So like offensively, they're playing right around where they have been all season, okay? Defensively, worse. They underperformed defensively relative to their season average. So how did this game swing so violently in the direction of the Vanderbilt Commodores? Well, it's actually not about Vandy. Diego Pavia played lights out. Those guys played hard. But Vanderbilt fans aren't going to want to hear this. Vanderbilt didn't really win that game. Alabama underperformed and essentially lost that game. Offensively, Alabama was a little bit better than they've been all season. Vanderbilt couldn't really stop Alabama. Alabama kind of stopped Alabama. Defensively, it's the defensive shift, guys. Defensive EPA. That correlates the highest with season win total. Okay. Look at this shift across the defensive average for Alabama. They've kind of been, they've been on the season below the conference average, which is where you want to be. Like 0.075, 0.06. And that got wrecked in week 6. That got wrecked 0.2, we'll call that 0.24, 0.25. That was a massive, massive defensive underperformance against a Vanderbilt offense that efficiency-wise wasn't better than their efficiency, their season average efficiency. So understand what I'm saying, that when we're looking at this comparison, Vanderbilt didn't have a world-beating offensive performance. Alabama just couldn't stop them. Alabama's defense performed way worse relative to Vanderbilt's offense. I hope that makes sense here, guys. I hope that makes sense. That game was on Alabama to lose, and they lost it. All right. Let me go on to the night game real quick, and then we're going to get into the rankings model, guys. I promise. We're going to get into the rankings model. This is not going to be a stupid long episode. So Tennessee coming off a bye week. You got your 2 starting tackles back, which was all the talk in the Oklahoma game. Playing the backup tackles, you still had a dominant performance. It looked like they never got off the bus in that parking lot. Arkansas's defense had 4 sacks on Nico, 4 tackles for loss, a forced fumble. No, sorry. They didn't recover a fumble. Excuse me. Nico did have 1 fumble, but they didn't lose it. He recovered it. Final score here, 19-14. Tennessee led 14-3 in the third quarter. 14-3 in the third quarter, and then gave up 16 unanswered points. The story of this game is not Tennessee's defense. Tennessee's defense was still, they weren't as great as they have been. They let Taylon Green throw for 266 yards. They held him to just 88 yards, though, till the fourth quarter. Like a lot of, Arkansas's rushing total 134. Like 50 of those yards came in garbage time, essentially. Well, not garbage time, because they were still playing to win the game, but came at the very end of the fourth quarter. That Tennessee defense, run defense, did their job. They gave up so many 3rd and longs, I thought I was going to pull my hair out. They had them on 4th and long in their own end zone and had no pressure on the perimeter and let them gut it out of the end zone. Stupid special teams penalties. A roughing the kicker, which gave Arkansas a scoring possession. Absolutely inexcusable for Tennessee's defense, who's been so good this season, and Tennessee special teams, to give up so many 3rd and long situations like that. But what's more inexcusable is the piss poor performance of Tennessee's offense. Now, they still ran the ball. They still got their rushing yards. 174. Not great, but they got their rushing yards. They couldn't throw. Nico was hitting guys in the hands. They couldn't catch the ball. Nico's going to be one of my worst graded QBs on the week. 17 of 29, 158 yards, no interceptions. They couldn't move the ball downfield. They couldn't throw the ball. They couldn't get anything done through the passing game. Let's see what gives here. Arkansas, look at where they are on the season average. They're right at the conference average. If you were going to put a picture in the dictionary of the conference average for offensive and defensive efficiency, it would be the Arkansas Razorbacks. Smack in the middle. Tennessee has been elite defensively. They've been good enough offensively. They've been better than the conference average. This week, Arkansas played exactly where they've been playing all season. A little bit worse defensively. A little bit worse offensively. But basically right where they have been. So what gives? Well, it was Tennessee. It was that Tennessee offense. They completely underperformed offensively. Like, it was a huge offensive underperformance. Defensively, they massively underperformed. So this game wasn't about Arkansas. It really wasn't. Sorry, Arkansas fans. It really wasn't. The story here was the gross underperformance by Tennessee. And you'll see Tennessee, Arkansas overlapping here on the week 6 chart. That means Tennessee played down to the level of Arkansas, and Arkansas beat them. Razorbacks beat them. That's what happens when you go on the road and you play down. It's what happened to Alabama. Alabama went on the road to Vanderbilt and played down. We see that shift across the average there. They played down. Vanderbilt beat them. Mizzou went on the road to Kyle Field. Played way down. Credit to A&M, though. They played way up. That one's a little bit different. Some other notable games of the SEC. Georgia over Auburn. You can kind of see here, Georgia played right about where they have been all season. Auburn statistically played much worse. That's not going to cut it against one of the top 5 teams in the country. The Florida Gators get a win over UCF at home. And I think that's it. I think that's all we had. We had other teams on a bye. So Kentucky on a bye, Oklahoma on a bye, LSU on a bye, Mississippi State on a bye week. All right, let's get into the power rankings now, guys. But real quickly before we do, head on over, if you've not, I've got it scrolling on the bottom of the screen here, to bonfire.com/store/SEC recap. Check out all the SEC merch I've got on my website there. I've got something for everybody, something for every team, and also some fun stuff as well. My personal favorite, the Big Doink Energy Tee. Guys, show your love for Big Doinks with the Big Doink Energy Tee. Bonfire.com/store/SEC recap. I've got short sleeve, long sleeve, sweatshirts, hoodies. They all feel great. It's that super premium soft cotton. They fit great across your shoulders, guys. You know what I'm talking about. You get those weird t-shirts that just like fit weird on your arms. They don't lay across your chest right, and they're baggy around your gut. Not these. These lay perfectly. They make your shoulders, your chest look good. So I love mine. I've ordered like 3 or 4 of these things for different teams, and the fun ones like the Big Doink Energy. So head on over there, find something for your team, find something you love. It is bonfire season, y'all. The weather's cooling down. So head on over to bonfire.com/store/SEC recap. All right. Let's talk power ratings. Now that I've kind of reacted to the weekend, we've got that out of our system. Give me a second to pull it up here. And I've added a little something to this, okay? Hang on. That's not formatted right. Bear with me, guys. We'll give this one more shot. Let me just talk through it while I try to work through my formatting issues here. Present full screen. How does that look? Perfect. Okay. All right. At the number 16 spot, staying put here, Mississippi State Bulldogs. Now, I've talked about this, weekly as we do these model rankings. I'm also including my model score here. to give you an idea of the point differential that separates these teams as we go from 16 all the way to 1. Okay. So these are not based on my gut. This is not, based on anything I saw and go, well, I feel that this team really didn't look good, so I'm going to put them at 16. No, 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 no. What a lot of people do on social media, a lot of podcasters and YouTubers, when they do their power ratings, guys, it's based on nothing but how they feel. They go, well, I really like this team this week and I didn't like this team this week, so I'm putting this one at 10 and this one at 9. Not that is not how this model works. This model, it factors in several things. The offensive and defensive efficiencies that we just looked at on those charts are a part of it. Head-to-head, strength of record, those things factor in. Similar to what ESPN's FPI captures, but this captures some things that FPI doesn't. Okay, not going to go into the math behind it or all the numbers. But I'm going to show you my score down here to give you an idea. Okay. So staying put at 16, Mississippi State with a score of 8.41. That is, worst in the league, obviously, but that score relative to the subsequent scores here is going to be illuminating how bad Mississippi State is. Now, the model doesn't punish you for not playing. Mississippi State had a bye week, but it will shuffle teams around you, right? Teams that did play. So it's not necessarily going to drop you because you didn't play, because your numbers aren't affected there, but it is going to adjust the scores of other teams around you, which passively affect your score. Nothing else to say on Mississippi State. They didn't play this week. Number 15, they did play this week. Auburn Tigers, they lose to number 5 team, Georgia, 31-13. Not going to do a game-by-game breakdown in this one, stats or otherwise. This episode's already going as long as I want it to go. But you could see the score differential here. 31.09 for Auburn versus that 8.41 for Mississippi State, to show you how big that gap is for Mississippi State right now. It's a big, big, big gap. Not to say that Mississippi State can't show up on any weekend and pull one out, but just looking at the numbers, 15-16 is a big leap between Mississippi State and Auburn there. Dropping a spot to 14 this week, the Florida Gators. Now, they did beat UCF by a couple of scores, but they were outperformed by other teams already sitting in a similar position to them. We'll see those here in just a few minutes. 38.42. Okay, 38.42 for the Florida Gators. It's about 7 points better than Auburn. So a little bit of a differential there. Not a huge gap, but enough of one. Also dropping a spot coming off that loss to Ole Miss, that 27-3 loss at home to Ole Miss. The Gamecocks dropped one spot to number 13 with a score of 39.02. So like a half a point different here, a little bit more than a half a point between 13 and 14. One of the biggest jumps, and I think the highest that this team has ever been rated since I've been running this model, the Vanderbilt Commodores leap 2 spots. 14 was kind of their ceiling. Now it's 12 off of that Alabama win. 36.64. Sorry, that's supposed to be a 30. I had that typed in wrong. It's a 39.64. I apologize, guys. 39.64 there for Vanderbilt. So about 0.6 better than South Carolina was graded out in the model. And a big time win. I mean, biggest win in program history for the Vanderbilt Commodores. You can't neg them for anything this week. Like, gritty win, gutsy win, like awesome for them. Really cool to see. Number 11, this team does not change this week. The Kentucky Wildcats. Now, they were on a bye. Again, model doesn't punish you for not playing. But it will move other teams around you. It doesn't move Kentucky. So at a 47.95, that's about an 8.5 point differential from the number 12 spot. So you can start to see that gap getting a little wider between those bottom 5 and the middle 5 here. At the number 10 spot, also staying put. Now, a lot of Razorbacks fans might not like this. I said a few minutes ago, I'm going to say some things that, all teams aren't going to like or going to want to hear. But I mentioned in that efficiency breakdown that Tennessee lost that game. Tennessee grossly underperformed offensively and defensively, where Arkansas performed right at their season average. That's why you really don't see them move in the model here. This wasn't me being salty and saying, oh, I don't like them, therefore I'm not going to move them. This is by the numbers. Okay. My opinion doesn't factor into these at all whatsoever. 49.78 their score. That's about a point and a half better than Kentucky. All of this is posted on my website, guys, if you want to see secrecap.com/stats. I'll show you that here after we do this. But all those charts, these numbers, the comparisons, the power rankings, all of that, secrecap.com/stats. I posted on my Twitter as well. So Kentucky doesn't move. Arkansas doesn't move despite the upset win. And it's because Arkansas really didn't perform better than their season average. It was the opposite. Tennessee performed worse than their season average. The model recognizes that. So that's what we see. It's also why we see this next team drop 3 spots to number 9, Mizzou, not Michigan, you salty MFers. Okay. I use the block M. Mizzou has used the block M. I've not switched to the Tiger logo. I refuse because people drop comments asking about, is it Michigan? No, it's the Mizzou Block M. I like the Mizzou Block M. It's my podcast, so that's what I'm going to use. 50.37, their score there, about a half a point better than Arkansas. And it was that underperformance from the Mizzou Tigers that dropped them 3 spots. Whereas what we'll see with A&M, they had that massive outperformance. The model is going to favor that and reward that by moving them up. Oklahoma didn't play, but the model shifts them up 1 spot to number 8, 56.5. So about 6 points better than that number 9 spot. So once again, you start to see that point differential widening, right? Mississippi State, kind of an outlier. 12 through 15 in that 31 to 47 range. Now we kind of have 9 through 11 in that 47 to 50 point range. And we start to see that gap grow just a little bit more here. Don't have anything else to say about Oklahoma. They didn't play. LSU, they didn't play. So they had a bye week. Model doesn't really move them. They stay put at the number 7 spot with a 59.7. A&M jumps 2 here. They take over that number 6 spot from the Mizzou Tigers, 66.95 their score, about a 7-point differential between them and LSU. Now, as we get into the top 5, here's where we continue to see the largest margin in the top of the league versus the middle of the league. And I'm going to jump back over to my charts real quick. I'll go back. Full screen that. Just so you can see what I'm talking about here. On the season averages, right, your top 5 teams are going to be these teams in this bottom right quadrant. These are your elite teams offensively and defensively, right? And it really hasn't changed all season. You've got Ole Miss, Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. Now, who's been 1, 2, and 3? That's kind of shuffled a little bit, but we've seen these top 5 teams consistently be in the top 5 in the power rankings model for that very reason, okay? How these teams are graded out is a huge difference from number 6. So there's a huge talent gap. Well, not talent gap, but talent gap, skill gap between the top 5 teams and those 6, 7, and 8 teams. Okay. Let me jump back over to this one. That means at the number 5 spot, they don't move. They come off a nice road win at South Carolina, 80.63, the Ole Miss Rebels. That is 14 almost 14 points better than the number 6 spot, Texas A&M. So that just gives you an idea of the spread that we're dealing with there. Dropping a spot, they were at number 3 last week, even though they didn't play. They were on a bye. They took the road loss this week, but they still grade out at an 81.49 in the model. Tennessee Volunteers. So just about 1 point better than Ole Miss, but those teams are really close. ESPN actually would rank Ole Miss ahead of Tennessee. I like my model better because it shows you some things that FPI does not. Dropping 2 spots after the road loss to Vanderbilt to number 3, the Alabama Crimson Tide, 86.28 in the model. That is about 5 points better than Tennessee. So a little bit of a margin there between the 3 and 4, Tennessee and Alabama. Jumping back up 2 spots, I had them at number 4 for a couple weeks. Georgia Bulldogs get a nice win against Auburn, historical rival there. Number 2, Georgia Bulldogs, 86.71 in the model. It is still really close between them and Alabama, 86.71 versus 86.28. So like less than half a point difference there between Georgia and Alabama, just to give you an idea. Now, this is strange, guys. Really strange. They didn't play this week, but they retake the number 1 spot in the rankings this week. The Texas Longhorns, 93.46. They had dropped to number 2 last week after Alabama had beat Georgia. So strange to see a team not play and get bumped up into the number 1, but that's just what the numbers say. So Texas Longhorns there, your number 1 team on the week. Let me close it out by showing you the full rankings there. Guys, let me know what you think. What do you think? Are you salty? How did your weekend turn out? It wasn't great for me. I'll be honest. It wasn't great for a lot of you out there. But let me know what you think in the comments. And as always, if you are here on YouTube, like, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it. I put these videos out for you guys. Just try to show you something a little bit different than what other people are doing out there. Thank you for tuning in once again. I will be back to preview the Week 7 matchups later in the week. Have a great week. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.